Good Thursday morning to you, and welcome to Light the Tower. On the Horn, 104.9, 101.9, AM 1260. We're live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. My name is Craig Way. Glad to have you with us alongside Jeff Howe out today. His regular 9-to-5 job, you might say. Horns 24/7 has a company-wide meeting, so he's heavily engrossed in that. So he'll be back tomorrow. And the two of us will be back tomorrow. Now, Jeff will be in studio like I am right now. He'll be in studio tomorrow. I will actually be on the show from our Williamson County Bureau, so to speak, up there in the domicile. And the reason for that being is it helps me with all the packing and the equipment to take to set up in Waco for the baseball broadcast tomorrow night. It gives me that extra hour head start, the jump to getting, instead of going back through traffic from Southwest Austin up to the north side of Georgetown, to help me get out there a little quicker so that I can get set up for the Longhorn baseball game tomorrow night against Baylor, the series opener from the Baylor ballpark in Waco. Toward that end, in talking about Longhorn athletics, here's what we have on the program today. First of all, we, coming up in a few minutes, we're going to re-air our conversation with Longhorns head football coach Steve Sarkisian. Of course, today's the final day of regular practice on the practice field of spring drills for Texas. And then Saturday is the annual orange-white spring game. We gave you some of the details yesterday. We have more details to give you today. But we had a conversation, and it happened pretty quickly, the turnaround. We had to change a time where we were going to visit with Sark, so it popped on, and I know it caught some people without warning and didn't get a chance to hear it or miss some of it. And it is always available on our podcast page at hornfm.com. But we did get some requests on that. So we are going to re-air it here. It's just a few-minute conversation with Sark. We're going to have that for you. Now, at the bottom, the next thing we're going to do after that is we're going to bring you our Flex 30 update 1 hour earlier than we normally do. We're going to do that later. We're going to look at the UIL State Soccer Tournament, which is already underway, and we're going to hear from Ryan Ford, the head coach of the Conley Cougars boys team. You talk about a true Cinderella story in getting to state. So we're going to hear from him. That's coming up here. And we're doing that because of what we'll have in the 11 o'clock hour. But more in the 10 o'clock hour, our Longhorn Notebook at the bottom of the hour. Keith Moreland, my broadcast partner on Road Games for Longhorn Baseball, joins us. And Keith will be with me up there in Waco tomorrow night. And throughout the course of the weekend, Keith will be on our broadcast of Longhorn Baseball at Baylor. So Keith will join me not only to talk about Texas and even also Baylor, but the Big 12 at large and the national scene, because Keith is a voting member on one of the national polls, and he is additionally also works a lot of national college baseball, especially when you get to the postseason. So Keith will join us around the bottom of the hour. We do have Inconceivable and a couple of really meaty items, too, with Inconceivable. Then, in the 11 o'clock hour, just past the top of the hour, Gene Watson, the assistant general manager of the Kansas City Royals for Major League Scouting, joins us. Our weekly conversation with Gino. Got some interesting questions I want to ask him with regard to the action clock, as they call it. That's the official term, but we don't know it really is the pitch clock. We'll discuss that because it has accelerated the games. It's also brought about some tete-a-tetes between players and umpires as well. So there's that, and we'll visit with him. We'll also talk about the Tampa Bay Rays, who are trying to set a major league record, or tie the major league record for the most wins to start the season. 13-0, the 82 Braves, the 87 Brewers. They're trying for that against the Red Sox. That game starts like just past noon today. I mentioned that Jeff Howe is out today, but our producer is not. He's Cameron Parker, who's here. How you doing, Cam?
Good morning, Craig.
Hey, and folks have already, and I tip my hat to them, guys like CB and some of the other guys who are already on it. You noticed it, even as I was walking in to tell me about the news that A.J. Johnson, the Texas basketball signee, now is planning to play in Australia instead, and then try to. He's going to do that at least for 1 year, and then try to, by doing that, elevate his draft stock for the following year to go into the NBA draft.
The roster construction for next year looks really iffy at this point, Craig, because you mentioned Arturo Morris in the transfer portal. I mean, he could still technically come back. Dillon Mitchell and Tyrese Hunter in the draft, but they could still come back. No word on Dylan Disu yet, and we still haven't heard anything with the transfer portal. Yep.
So haven't heard yet on that as they continue to work on that. We know Ron Holland's coming in, obviously, but there's that's why this coaching staff is grinding on it and working on it. I know Rodney Terry was out there visiting with A.J. Johnson. He had already kind of made his decision he was going to do this and go to Australia and play his 1 year, but Rodney went out to visit with him about that. But now he and the staff working to beef up the backcourt again, what with the losses there, and, of course, Rowan Brumbaugh going into the transfer portal, and as Cam mentioned, Arturo Morris entering the transfer portal. We'll see where he emerges out of the other side of that. Dillon Mitchell, I think we'll see him return. The things that I've heard about Dillon is, while, as we all know, wildly athletically talented, lots of skill, he is not really appearing on draft boards. Now, neither is A.J. Johnson, and A.J.'s going to Australia to play. It doesn't mean that he might not wind up going somewhere else to play or trying to hook on with a G League team or whatever, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with him and Tyrese Hunter getting that feedback, just like Marcus Carr did last year, from the NBA people, not only on whether they would be drafted or might be signed as a free agent, but what parts of their game need work. And I think that's where that's the kind of feedback that they'll get on that. So we'll see, after all of that clears, what this roster makeup looks like right now. So, and then they're in the portal. They're looking and seeing what might be the right fits and works for this program. So that's where all of that is right now, and we'll obviously keep folks updated on that as we heard it, since that news came down right at the top of the hour there. So just to let everybody know, yes, A.J. Johnson now planning to play in Australia at least for a year, and perhaps parlay that into being drafted into the NBA the next year. All right. As I mentioned, we wanted to re-air this for you. This was yesterday morning, and Steve Sarkisian called in to visit with us yesterday to talk about the progress of spring practice to this point as they head down the home stretch. And I also had to ask him, because the other thing we were doing on the Specs text line yesterday, and you guys were great. I mean, great with your feedback and your input yesterday on the text line about phrases or sayings that your father or your grandfather or your uncle or a friend or your mom would have said that just stuck with you. You might not have agreed with it, might still not agree with it to this day, but it's just something that stuck with you all along. And I thought about that when I was driving in. So yeah, there's and so that we even asked him about that, and you'll hear that toward the end of the conversation. But this was the conversation we had yesterday with Longhorns head coach Steve Sarkisian. I wanted to give you an opportunity, just to give an overview on how you felt, so folks can hear it, how everything has gone through the spring, and then B, we'll just talk about a little bit about what your thoughts are about the spring game on Saturday. But first and foremost, the overview about how you felt things have gone.
I think spring ball's gone really well. We had a little bit of a different format this year, having gone 3 practices and then going on spring break, and then coming back for the remaining 12. We practiced 3 days a week. I thought that our guys really bought in the winter conditioning program, and I think that has shown up here in spring ball. I think our guys physically look really good. I like the depth of where we're at. Naturally this year, as you touched on, we're able to have the spring game. Part of that's because we finally have some linemen. We finally have some depth. We're able to really have a solid 2 deep, and quite frankly, we can really have a 3 deep in practice, which is great. And so I love kind of the projection of where that group is headed. Obviously, there's a lot of youth there. Haven't signed 12 players in the last 2 years on the offensive line. I love the competition that's happening at a number of positions right now, and I think that's healthy for all players to know that there's a guy, 2 or 3 at their position that is battling, that is pushing them to be the best that they can be. But I also think the competition is really healthy, offense and defense. That's always one of the hard parts as a coach. When you're going through spring ball and you're going against yourself, who do you want to win? How do you not, who you want to perform better than others? At the end of the day, I think competition is healthy. We're trying to minimize the mental errors. We're trying to push these guys to spaces that are uncomfortable so that they can get comfortable in those spaces. And I think it's gone really, really well. And, we've got one more practice tomorrow, and then we'll get after it here Saturday. But all in all, it's been a good spring. Knock on wood. We've been, the injury bug hasn't hit us, too much in comparison to, I know how it's hit some other people. So it's gone well. I'm proud of the guys. I'm proud of the work they put in. We are by no means a finished product, but I think we've set ourselves up for a really good summer and then getting ourselves ready for fall camp.
Longhorns head football coach Steve Sarkisian joining us here on Light the Tower on the Horn. Craig Way and Jeff Howe.
Sark, I asked you this during the signing day in December because you mentioned it when you first took the job. You wanted to establish a great developmental program at Texas, and I'd like to just kind of keep track of the markers in terms of where you're at. So as spring winds down, in terms of player development, and there's a lot of different areas that touches. Do you feel like you're on the track you want to be? Are you a little bit ahead, or do you feel like there's some more work to do? Where are you in terms of getting the player development aspect where you want it?
Well, I feel good. There's a lot of layers to player development, right? I think one is the actual play itself on the field. Our players developing into better players from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 and whatever stage they're in. Are they physically developing, right? In the weight room, with our training table, are we eating right? Are our bodies changing and developing that way? I think there's academic development, right? Is everybody, striving and working towards and earning their degree? And then I think there's just, kind of overall personal development, right? Are you becoming the man that we want you to be here at the University of Texas? And so I am really proud of the work that our guys have done. I'm proud of our staff and our organization. We invest a lot in our players. And in turn, I think we all can kind of see the byproduct of that. We see growth in a lot of different people, a lot of different players. And a lot of times you see that growth from year 1 to year 2 from a maturity standpoint, whether that's physical or mental. But also I see a lot of maturity in our team. I see a lot of development in our team and understanding the situations of the game. And we spend a lot of time on that because I think a lot of times those 1 or 2 plays at situational moments, that's the difference between winning and losing. And so through it all, I am proud of the work that our players have put in. I think there's a definite investment and commitment to trying to do it right and do it at a high level. But I'm also really proud of our staff and our organization, and obviously the support of our administration to have the resources in place, and then the commitment from all parties involved to put our players in position and invest in them so that they can develop. And so all in all, that piece I am really proud of. And sometimes it's hard to always equate that, or quantify that, sometimes with weight gains and different things. But, from a coach's eye and having seen these guys now for heading into year 3, I am really pleased with where we're at.
Sark, toward that end, you and I have talked about that C word a few times, that old culture thing. But I was really intrigued by some things that you said on that Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark yesterday. There was some real talk and some things about you setting the thermostat for the program. And I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about how comfortable you feel with this group now as you begin your 3rd season.
Yeah, I mean, I feel great with this group. We still have, there's still a fair amount of players on the team that essentially I inherited right when I got here. Whether it's the Trevondre Sweats or the Jordan Whittingtons or the Vernon Broughtons, the Alfred Collins. There's still a handful of those guys, And then there's still a group of guys that were signed in December prior to me getting hired in January that I didn't get a chance to really recruit, but they have been with us since day one when they arrived. And now we've got 2 recruiting cycles of our own of a group of players. But I think at the end of the day, everybody in our organization understands the standard here, understands the work ethic needed, understands our core values. I think you hear the conversation is a lot more natural, not just coming from me and the coaches, but amongst the players, amongst, when somebody new comes on board. I think the conversation with that new person doesn't always have to come from us, but it can come from other players, graduate assistants, trainers, strength staff. And so in the end, I feel very comfortable, to your point, about the temperature in our building. I think we're striving and working towards being a championship caliber football team. And, sometimes some people can hit that stride sooner than others. We just believe in our process of what we need to do. And I feel really comfortable. I feel great about this team because when I look at the way we look, I'm excited about that. I think that we've recruited well. I think the guys that have been here have developed their bodies and look tremendous. But beyond that, I like just kind of the culture that we've developed. And I think this is a very tight-knit building that we're in. We're one that is upbeat, is positive, but is relationship-based. And I don't think that anybody in our organization ever feels uncomfortable coming to talk to me about whatever it is. And that's always what I'd hoped I could develop here and instill here. And that to me as a coach, that's the beauty of it. Because when you're connected that way on a personal level, man, that's a heck of a lot easier to go take the field and want to compete with one another and fight for one another for a common goal of winning a championship.
Sark, when you and Coach Milwee are breaking down quarterbacks, I know you've been asked a ton about quarterbacks this spring, but when you break down the practice film and the scrimmage film and look at really those top 3 guys with Quinn and Malik and Arch, how much of it is judging those guys based on kind of the baseline stuff, the non-negotiables, if you will, you guys have for the quarterback position? And then how much of it do you have to look at and say, okay, Quinn is on a different, trajectory because of experience than Malik, who, because he's been here a little bit longer, is on a different time clock, if you will, than Arch is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that those are all fair, assessments, because the reality of it is, right, we do have non-negotiables here, whether that's, work ethic, whether that's, quarterbacks aren't on any list here at the University of Texas, whether that's an academic list, whether that's an off-the-field issue, whatever that is. I mean, there's a standard here in which the quarterback sets the tone, and we hold all quarterbacks to that standard. But there's also a driving force from providing energy, a level of intensity, a level of just their work ethic in which they go to practice, the work ethic that they put in off the field to prepare for practice, mentally, physically, whatever that looks like. But then you have to look at, okay, where are they? What is their knowledge base of what we're trying to do? And are they able to execute the things at the stage of where they're at in the program? And then how quickly can they elevate themselves to the next step and the next step and the next step? And that's really what we look at. And, decision making comes into those things, ability. A lot of, one of the things I assess a lot is, can they not make a bad play worse? And when we use the adage, don't turn a fender bender into fatalities. Bad things happen in football. Guys miss blocks. Guys run the wrong routes. We don't, that's going to happen. It's okay to throw the ball away. They might know a screen is coming, throw the ball away, not throwing it to a defensive lineman, because those can be catastrophic errors. And the guys that can do that, that's a positive sign, because those are winning plays as well. As important as it is to throw that post route for a touchdown, it's equally as important not to force a ball into coverage when you're backed up and all of a sudden you throw a pick six. And so we evaluate a lot of those things. We also evaluate their ability to process what we are teaching them and then go out and when that opportunity presents itself again, not make the same mistakes twice. And then can they learn from others, right? Can they learn when the other quarterback's getting coached on something, can they learn from that? And so when they're put in that situation that another guy was, how do they react to it? So there's a lot of levels to this thing. And in the end, I think the quarterback, it's really critical, right? He instills belief in the entire organization. He instills belief into all 100,000 people in DKR on Saturday afternoons. You know, that's what they do. That's why it's the most important position in sports. And so, you know, who can do that? Who can inspire? Who can instill belief, but still yet play at a high level and move the chains and put points on the board and do all those types of things.
Which brings us to the spring game, Sark. I wanted to give you an opportunity just to tell fans a little bit about, you know, what can they expect on Saturday? Come in. I think it's really cool. Obviously, there's going to be an autograph session for them with players at 9:30. But when you get into the spring drills, the spring game, the Orange White, what can fans expect to see on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, we're really excited about Saturday. You know, 2 years ago, we were able to play a game from a roster management standpoint. Last year, we weren't as fortunate, just with the limitations on the offensive line, most notably. But this year, we're able to do it again. So we are going to have an autograph signing actually at 9 a.m., Craig, on Bevo Boulevard, and looking forward to the fans being out and interacting with them. Getting around that, and then we'll get the players, you know, get them eating breakfast and getting in meetings and getting themselves ready to go, and then we'll kick the ball off at about 1:00. It'll be an orange and white game. You know, obviously the quarterbacks won't be live, and some of the special teams, we're going to execute the special teams, but those sessions won't be live. And then we're going to go play ball, and we're going to allow a lot of players to play. And again, it's as much for the fans to see our players, but for some of our players, it's performing in front of fans. For some of our new players, this will be the most people they've played in front of in their lives. And so getting them acclimated to some of that coming out of the tunnel, you know, there's always conditions that can show up. It's going to be hotter Saturday than it's been all spring. And so how do we respond to that? And so there's a lot of things that the evaluation continues for me. But at the end of the day, I want our players to go out and have fun. They've worked really hard all winter. They've worked hard. It will end up being through 14 practices by Saturday. Their fans will get a chance, their families will get a chance to kind of come see a little bit of the finished product of where they're at to this stage of the year. And then when we get done with that spring game, then we'll get back in the lab in the summer and in fall camp and get ourselves ready for September.
All right, Sark, we'll let you go with this. We had a question for the listeners this morning. If there was one phrase or a mantra or a motto, it didn't even have to be. It could just be a phrase, you know, that your father or mom or uncle or grandfather, something that somebody said to you that just stuck with you. I have a feeling we may already have the answer when you said don't turn a fender bender into a fatality with regard to your quarterbacks. But was there something that someone said to you, a phrase that's just kind of stuck with you all these years?
Wow. You know, I'm big into reading. I'm big into watching podcasts. I'm big into all this kind of stuff. And so you haven't been in my office lately, Craig, but I've got a whole wall of things that matter to me, right? And things that stick with me that I hold on to. But I think one that really stands out to me is bring the best version of you today.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, what is that best version of you today? Bring that, right? That's all we're asking of. We're not asking for superhuman efforts. Whatever your job is, whatever your role is in an organization or in your family or in your household or in the relationship that you're in, what's the best version of you look like? And can you bring that day in and day out, right? And that's something that I've always held on to. But I got all sorts of stuff, man, that really matter to me, that I hold on to, that I think, you know, ultimately, hopefully shape me, that in turn is hopefully shaping our organization. Because I do believe this: teams take on the personality of their head coach. And the more I can instill truly who I am, I think that the more natural it's going to be kind of, you know, culturally and the personality of our team come the fall.
And there it is. That was our conversation yesterday morning with Longhorns head football coach Steve Sarkisian. And again, just to refresh you on this, the autograph thing will start at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, 9 to 9:30, down toward the south end of Bevo Boulevard. And they're going to provide posters, but they ask that you do not bring personal items for autographing. So they'll have posters provided on that. And then we'll give you some other details as we go forward on this, because it's going to be a full-on Bevo Boulevard presentation, if you will. And our coverage will begin at 11 o'clock tomorrow on Saturday morning from Bevo Boulevard. And, of course, the kickoff just past 1 o'clock tomorrow. So we'll give you some more details on that coming up. Now, before we go to the break, and before we talk baseball with Keith Moreland, I do want to get to our Flex 30 update an hour earlier this Thursday.
Flex ATX for the best high school sports coverage. Listen to the Horn and go to FLXATX.com. Flex 30 is brought to you by Brain Vault. Brain Vault is a revolutionary and patented mouthguard that has been proven to help reduce the risk of concussion. Visit BrainVault.com and join the movement.
All right, the UIL State Soccer Tournament is underway. There were 4 games played yesterday, 2 girls, 2 boys. And on the girls' side, in 4A, Salina shut out Bernie 2-0. And Stephenville beat Lumberton 4-0. On the boys' side, Lumberton also lost. Palestine edged them 3-2. And Hidalgo Early College shut out San Elizario 1-0 on that. Now, that's the 4A. Today, girls 5A starting at 11 o'clock this morning, Georgetown and Frisco. I still think it's pretty cool, Cam, that here's Georgetown getting a chance to play on the home turf in a state tournament game.
Yeah, how about that?
That's rare, but they are doing it. Georgetown against Frisco. They're in one of the 5A semifinals. And then Salina will play Stephenville in the 4A state championship game today at 2:30. Then later today, you have the boys 5A semifinals. El Paso Bel Air against Mission Sherryland, and then Frisco Lone Star against Pflugerville Conley. That's right, the Conley Cougars. What a big surprise of it was. 14-11-3 going in, just a big Cinderella story, and turning it on late, and like you said, pulled some big-time upsets along the way.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a ride for them, and they look really dominant the last few weeks, Greg.
Well, their head coach, Ryan Ford, and our thanks to our good friend and colleague Roger Wallace at KXN, sent me this piece of sound with Ryan Ford, their head coach, talking about how they've had this real familial feel to the team, and it's an extension of a family of the Conley Cougar boys soccer program.
Well, the team is really like a family. The 2016 team that went, there were a couple of older brothers of the players that we have now. A number of these players are cousins and related and grown up playing. It's really like a family, and it shows on the field. They really understand what each other is trying to do, and they play like a team. We have some incredible individuals, but the group, the way that they play together, because they're so close, and a lot of them played together last year too. It's really been fun to watch.
Yeah, so there it is. One of the young men, Mauricio Orozco, sophomore midfielder, his brother played on the 2016 state tournament team. So they're pretty excited about that, and with good reason on that. There is a game going on right now, and it's in the 5A girls semifinals, Smithson Valley and Grapevine, and they're in the 40th minute of play there, and it is Smithson up 1-0. So there it is in a 5A girls state semifinal game going on. All right, so there it is. There's your Flex 30 update. Up next, we'll visit with Keith Moreland. We'll talk some Longhorn baseball, Big 12 baseball, and on the national scene, it'll be our Longhorn Notebook. That's next with Light the Tower on the Horn, 104.9, 101.9 AM 1260. We're live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Hey, just to let you know, also, with the NBA play-in tournament underway, playoffs begin. The true NBA playoffs begin next week. Major League Baseball is well underway. There's college baseball, spring football going on, the XFL, USFL around the corner, all of that stuff. If you're not completely satisfied with your home entertainment setup, give my good friend Tom McKay and Audiovisual Consultations a call at 512-255-8678. Tom and his staff have the equipment, the knowledge, the expertise to help you be able to completely not only visualize what you want, but to make that vision a reality. They'll work within your budget because they're not raising prices like so many others are. And if you're concerned about having to go out and, swim in that large pool of folks that are trying in the big box stores to get that particular 75-inch or 85-inch HD TV, chances are Tom and his staff already have it. And if not, they can get their hands on it pretty quickly. And you don't have to worry about the mounting and the equipment and all of that stuff that it takes to get it all done. Tom and his staff handle it all, and they handle it with incredible ease. Check them out on the web at avconsultations.com or give Tom and his staff a call, 512-255-8678. That's 512-255-8678. And let Tom McKay and Audiovisual Consultations help you realize the home entertainment system of your dreams. This is Light the Tower on the Horn. Craig Way with you. Jeff Howe will be back in tomorrow. And tomorrow, Texas Longhorns open up another Big 12 Conference baseball series. This one on the road, which brings us to today's Longhorn Notebook.
Longhorn Notebook.
And they'll be in Waco to take on the Baylor Bears at the Baylor Ballpark in Waco. Pleased, as always, to be joined by my broadcast partner on a lot of the Longhorn baseball road games. Of course, the lifetime Longhorn and College Baseball Hall of Famer, and the play-by-play voice on Longhorn Network of the telecast of home Texas games, Keith Moreland, who joins us now. You've spent a lot of time in Waco over the past few years.
Yeah, sequestered, I think is the word I use.
I was telling Keith after the game on Tuesday night, the team hotel where the team is going to be staying. And I asked, and I said it in an inquisitive manner, like they're staying at this particular hotel, and I was like, and almost in a way of saying, "Do you know where it is?" And he just looked at me plainly and said, "I think you said I think I spent 2 weeks in there," or something like that.
Oh yeah, working it is so much fun. The Southwest Little League, but that particular hotel is where that we stay. Everybody that's working the broadcast at Southwest Little League, but it's always interesting to go to Waco because there's so many weird things have happened over the years there, and different things to Longhorn baseball. But it should be an interesting weekend, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you while we're on the subject of the Little League, the Southwest Little League, because I know obviously you were in on that, and then of course had the medical issue and couldn't take part. What's the best part about all that about working that Southwest Little League there in Waco?
Oh, I think it's just the pure joy that you see some of these guys. If some of these young folks that girls and boys, because we've had Ella Burson was just fantastic there a couple of years ago. She was a catcher for Abilene, Wiley Little League, and it is just so much fun to see their joy and to have some success. You don't want to feature the negativity of it, because there's a winner and a loser in every sporting event, but it's just to see some of the joy of somebody doing something special, maybe getting a big hit. They hadn't had a lot of hits, and they get a big hit in a certain situation. It's just a whole lot of fun to see the joy from the kids, and it's really well done. It's well put together. It's well managed. It is something that if you haven't seen it, this summer, the first week of August, again, you ought to drive up and just spend one day at the ballpark. There's a doubleheader every evening. It's quite warm, probably around 100 degrees, but it's a unique experience, to say the least.
Visiting with Keith Moreland, and we'll shift now, obviously, to Longhorn baseball as they get ready to take on Baylor. But let's talk about this Texas team first. You and I, on Monday night, were in San Marcos, and we saw Kobe Minchie come out and pitch. And there's a decent chance, because we saw Kobe work an inning of scoreless relief the prior Tuesday against the Air Force Academy. There's a decent chance, even if the rain out of Thursday against Kansas State had not necessitated playing 5 consecutive days, 5 ball games in 5 days, we probably would have seen some younger guys anyway by the mere fact that there were 5 games played, even if it was going to be 5 games in 6 days, wouldn't it? So, David Pierce and Woody Williams, they knew they were going to have to get some young guys out there, and it just kind of became even more compressed because of the rain out.
Well, yeah, and you know this, and for folks out there, collegiate pitchers are so oriented around working on a 7-day rotation. They have a real set pattern. Most of the time they throw on their particular day, especially starting pitchers. They'll throw their day. The next day is a day of running, getting a good sweat together, get their blood flowing really good. The next day they'll play long toss. The third day they may throw off a mound, spin some breaking balls. The fourth day it's, again, another day of running. So they get into this real pattern that what you do, and then all of a sudden you disrupt that by throwing more games, throwing more times in, different start dates. And when that happens, you're going to have to use some different people. That's why you carry, 22 people or 19 to 22 people on your roster as pitchers of your 35 that you can have on your roster. There's just you got to carry that many just to be able to spread it out. And so some guys don't get the opportunity to throw as much, but they're going to be asked to come on. And I thought Minchie has proved himself now in his 2 appearances that he's going to get the ball again. I mean, I don't think there's a doubt about that.
Yeah, for folks who didn't know, and of course his story is pretty interesting. The fact that he was homeschooled and his dad had a cup of coffee in the bigs, and then of course played a lot in the Pacific Rim, that sort of thing. But his dad was from the Greater Austin area, graduate of Pflugerville High, and all of that sort of stuff. One thing that David told us was he said we didn't just sit around and say, oh, let's get him. Let's just run him out there because we're running low on pitchers. It kind of reminds me of the old Life cereal commercial. Let's get Mikey. He won't eat it. He hates everything. And then he goes out and eats the bowl of cereal. That kind of thing. I mean, the work, and for folks that don't understand this, and you have a unique perspective on this, Keith, folks that don't understand or don't know about, and that's fair, don't know about what a college baseball program, in specific this one does, on Wednesdays when they don't have a game. And I want to give you a chance to kind of describe a little bit, because Wednesdays are really big in terms of the guys that you aren't seeing out there every single day. I mean, it might not be as big to say a Dylan Campbell or somebody like that as it is, say, a younger guy who doesn't get much opportunity. But those Wednesdays are pretty big to the guys who aren't playing an awful lot or pitching an awful lot, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Mondays is a day off. The NCAA requires one day out of 7, whatever your scheduled work week. Most teams start their work week on a Sunday, so they give Monday off. Tuesday at cross college baseball, most weeks, I would say 90% of the weeks of a college baseball season, there's a game. So that's just a regular game. Then Wednesday is the day where you use the pitchers that you haven't used over the course of last weekend, and on Tuesday they get to play in a game. So that's usually an inter-squad game, and you only get 3 hours for a workout. So you're usually going to have 2 or 3 or 4 guys that are going to go 50 to 70 pitches on that day, and that's their chance to work, and that's their chance for the hitters that haven't seen a lot of live pitching and have been in the games. They get to play a whole lot in those games. So Wednesday is a full work day of scrimmaging, of live pitching, live baseball. It's almost like a game day atmosphere, only the best you can put that. And then on Thursdays is usually your day when you're working on your bunt drills. PFP, it's called pitchers fielding practice. Those are the days that you work on things as a coach, installing different signs, signals. That's a day of work, but Wednesday is the one day where the guys get that opportunity, and sometimes guys can get a chance to get in the lineup. You see Max Blue gets in every once in a while in the lineup to start as a DH. That's because he's had a good Wednesday. He's coming along. You see what he is as a hitter, and it's that their opportunity to impress the staff and the head coach and say, hey, I think that this guy could help us in our lineup. So it is a huge day for players who are not Eric Kennedy or that kind of thing. Or Garrett Gilmet, those kind of guys. It's a huge day for those guys.
By the way, you brought up Garrett Gilmet. How instructive and helpful has it been for Rylan Galvan to be able to catch once or twice a week there, usually maybe on the Saturday game and then maybe on the midweek game or something like that, to give Garrett a little bit of rest, because we always talk about how injuries can really slow down a catcher, and we know that Silas Ardoin really had to fight through a lot of it last year to get all the way through the season.
Yeah, and the other thing, you want to keep their legs intact. This is a guy that's key to the offense, hitting in your 4 spot in your order. You've got to give him some days off. I mean, you just got to give him the opportunity to rest his legs because there's so much involved behind the plate. And oh, by the way, folks, if you haven't seen Rylan Galvan, the only guy that I can picture that is from the right side that's had as much power as he's going to have before his career is over is just left here, and he won the Golden Spikes Award and the Dick Hauser Award. His name's Ivan Melendez. This guy's got tremendous power. He's still learning how to hit. He's still got a lot of growing up to do, but he's going to be a special player before he leaves this university.
Let's talk about Baylor. We both know Mitch Thompson pretty well, and for years on Steve Smith's staff, and then after that staff was dismissed, he went to across town to the Highlands over to McLennan, won a national championship at the JUCO level, and now is back his first year back. I mean, he clearly knew it was going to be a rebuilding process, and it really looked like that early on. They had 2 games against Duke where they gave up a 20-burger and one against 10 and all that. But now it looks like they've kind of found their footing a little bit, at least in terms of the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, 2 things that jump off the page just doing my preliminary studying. They're catching the ball better. And people get so spoiled, Longhorn fans, to look at the University of Texas and what they do defensively. They've just been so good for so long. Nobody pays much attention to that. Well, early in the year, Baylor was really having trouble struggling catching it. I mean, catching and throwing it. And you give teams, you got to get 27 outs in a game, and if you give them, you have to get 31 or 32, you're going to lose most of the time. So they are catching the ball better. They haven't given up as many free passes. The 2 things that I've looked at, their runners per inning whip, it's called, as a staff, has improved here in the second half of the season. It's gone down nearly a half a runner of inning. So if you give up 2 base runners an inning, you have a 2.0 whip. If you give up 1 per inning, you have a 1 whip, and that is fantastic. But they have lowered that down from what was 1.75 to now about 1.4. So that's a big difference over the course of 9 innings. That means there's 4 less base runners in 9 innings. That means you give up less runs. So those are the 2 things that they're catching it better. They're allowing less free passes, less runners. And then the last thing is every team, that ballpark is built so much for a southerly breeze. And, you get into that ballpark and it blows out of the south, you've got to put some runs on the board, and they found some way to produce some runs. So that's why they're playing better baseball than they were, let's say, back in the early part of February and or middle February and early March.
In your mind, because of the heavy load of the 5 games in 5 days, do you think it affects what David Pierce and Woody Williams want to do with that TBA third starter on Sunday? We obviously know Lucas Gordon will go tomorrow night, and I would imagine probably we'll see Travis Staley on Saturday. But with regard to the Sunday thing, is that still going to have to be an evaluative tool coming off of what they did this week to see how the guys bounce back?
I think Coach Pierce is going to put it as TWA, but I think in my mind, I think that Charlie Hurley has worked himself into that role, and that's where we're going to see him from here out. I don't think that starting pitching over the weekend is set in stone other than Friday night right now. I just think that there's nobody really jumped up there and grabbed that role. We got so spoiled last year, and really over the last couple of years, where you knew you were going to have Pete Hansen, you knew you were going to have Ty Madden, you knew you were going to have Tristan Stevens and those guys. Well, the only guy that right now in this club, and even though we're past the halfway part, is Lucas Gordon. After that, there hasn't been anybody, and I'm not getting on anybody, but there hasn't been anybody jump up and grab that spot and just say, hey, I'm the number 2 starter on this club, and it just hadn't happened yet.
If I ask you right now on April 13th, who the best college baseball team in the country is, your answer is?
Wake Forest.
Wow. How about that?
I think they have put 3 or 4 things together here, especially as late, and people do not realize, you look at power and power conferences, everybody talks about the SEC, and oh my gosh, SEC is good, but the ACC is right there. I mean, I can go through schools and people don't go to Boston College. You don't want to play them right now. Virginia Tech, you don't want to play them.
NC State.
NC State, you don't want to play them. Miami is playing good ball. Florida State just just pushed Florida all the way to the end on Tuesday night there. So I just think Wake Forest, in my opinion, right now, there's not much separation between 1 and 2 between LSU and Wake Forest, but both of them are going to be national seeds. Both of them are going to be 1-2 national seeds.
Okay. Hey, safe travel rolling up I-35. I'll see you at the ballpark tomorrow.
Sounds good. I will see you at the Baylor ballpark.
There it is. All right. Keith Moreland, he'll join me tomorrow night on the call. Texas against Baylor. He'll work with our friend Tom Barfield on Saturday. Tom will call the game on Saturday. I'll be back here with Roger and with Will Matthews for the spring football game, and then Keith and I will bring you Sunday's game as well. Texas against Baylor this weekend. When we come back, we have Inconceivable here. When we continue with Light the Tower on the Horn, 104.9, 101.9, AM 1260. We're live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Several items on tap for Inconceivable. First of all, it has been established on this program that our producer Cameron Parker is a fan of the Golden Arches.
Of course.
Your favorite meal again?
McDouble, mayo, ketchup, cheese only. Give me a milkshake and then some fries.
What flavor milkshake?
If they have the mint one in, which is only I think around St. Patrick's Day, I forget what they call it. Usually I just go with vanilla.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
All right. I want to give you the heads up on this because you just get it, you normally get a McDouble, which for folks who don't know the difference between McDouble and a double cheeseburger, because I did it myself. I went and bought one of each one time just to see what the difference is. You know what the difference is?
Isn't the amount of cheese put on
one extra slice of cheese? That's because it's 2 hamburger patties, but it's just 1 slice of cheese on the McDouble. It's 2 on the double cheeseburger, and it's like whatever 40 cents more or something like that. But anyway, you might want to be aware of this. McDonald's has been test marketing a new burger in England, in the United Kingdom. Now, of course, they have their, iconic offerings, the Big Mac and the quarter pounder with cheese, of course. A new limited edition McDonald's burger launched in the United Kingdom last month. Not only is capturing significant attention, but it's also converting many fans who are saying it's the best burger McDonald's has ever made.
Whoa.
Ever. It's called, now we know this term is kind of loosely tossed around with fast food burger places, the word steakhouse, okay? This is called a steakhouse stack burger, okay? It was just launched 2 weeks ago. Limited time menu item in the United Kingdom and Ireland. But what it is it is a test market to see how well it would go over as to whether they'd bring it to the U.S. So here's the deal. It's 2 beef patties.
Okay.
It's cheddar cheese. It is crispy onions, red onions, lettuce, and a creamy peppercorn sauce inside a toasted bun.
Wow.
So it's listed for a suggested price of £5.39, I guess it is, which is the equivalent of $6.72 in American dollars, which is pretty close to what you're paying for a Big Mac or a quarter pounder.
Yeah.
Aren't they like $5.99, I think?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, something like that. Fans have been flooding on Twitter saying, best burger they've ever produced, taste unreal for a fast food burger, best burger ever to come out of McDonald's. So I'm just saying.
High praise, Craig.
We do the fast food update on here just to let folks know that. I don't want to paint you into a corner on this. And as I ask you this question, it has nothing to do with Austin Radio Network in our building, but I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Have you ever been less than completely truthful, like say on a job interview or something when you're trying to get a job? Ever. In any way, shape, or form?
I don't think so.
Okay. That's good. And I believe you. I know how you are. There was someone who recently got a job and was on their way, or supposedly on their way in. They were going to get in part of the onboarding, as they say, process. And the poster came from the employee with a car crash. And it said, it won't be until this afternoon or early morning tomorrow. I was rear-ended on my way in. Not sure how much more could go wrong. Just spoke to HR. I'm waiting on AAA, and the police just got here. And there's a good smashed-up picture of a car. So the boss said, I'm so sorry. We'll see you when you get here. Then after that, after 2 months of, it said, jumping through hoops, background checks, and a few other incidents, our new employee was meant to start this morning. The rest is history.
Oh.
What they did was they did some checking around and found out what the employee did was the employee was not truthful about the car crash. Yes, there was definitely a car crash, but it was a common car crash photo on the internet. Why are you putting a photo there of a common car crash photo? There's one on Shutterstock. Adobe, RD.com, a law firm, a car firm. And then somebody else said, HR informed, or the person said, HR informed me that I was no longer offered the position. I'm sorry you doubted me, and I wish you all the best. My sincere apologies. And I was truthful regardless of what you may think. And then there were reactions. Somebody said, I always loved the line, I'm sorry you doubted me. Such an underhanded way to push off any accountability.
Yep.
They said someone was suspicious or they never would have done the image search. Not sure why someone would play this game on their first day. Somebody else, why include a photo? So they said, I guess they were suspicious because the picture was badly cropped. So said, as a hiring manager, this makes me cringe. I've been lied to more times than I can recall. I don't let it ruin my days anymore, though. So, yeah.
If you're going to use an image, Craig, from Google, you can literally take that image, put it back in the Google, and it will show up whether or not it's been used before.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you learn that in like middle school when you're putting together your essays, and the teacher's like, "Hey, we know when you cheat."
Thank you.
Do you? I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, not good there. Okay. Couple of things here. Apparently, a large fireball from outer space landed in the United States last week.
Was it in the Horn Studio bathroom?
That's an almost daily occurrence, unfortunately, as we've all stumbled into the bathroom and then quickly turned and walked right out because somebody was in there having a really difficult day. That's all I'm saying about that. However, no, this was about a fireball that actually landed in the state of Maine.
Oh.
Okay? And now, here's the key. There's a reward out to find it. So, as the story goes, meteorite hunters, get ready. A museum in Maine is offering $25,000 for the remains of a space rock that streaked across the sky last week before landing near the border of the United States and Canada. But they said they can confirm that it landed in the U.S., in Maine. Fireball was visible in broad daylight, created a sonic boom detected by radar, and NASA's Astromaterials Research and Exploration Science Lab, that's ARES lab, to calculate the strewn field where fragments of the meteor might be found near Calais, Maine. But the head of the meteorite division said he was keen to study any fragments of the meteorite could contain valuable information about the solar system. It's a $25,000 reward for the first meteorite piece that weighs at least 2.2 pounds or more. But he said the museum would be willing to pay for any specimen, irrespective of its size. So if you're planning to go up to Maine, yeah, you can check it out and see if there's something there. And finally, if you're going up to Maine and you decide to go up through or come back through New York City, you need to be aware of this. The city of New York, they have a lot of government things, and they have a lot of issues in New York, as we know. So they're trying to deal with one of them. One of the big issues they have is rats.
Oh, yeah.
We've all seen that great viral video, the rat hauling off the slice of cheese pizza or whatever. Well, the city is being proactive about this now. They've hired their first ever rat czar. Rat czar. That's right. You've heard of the drug czars and all this other stuff. No, it's a rat czar, and her name is Kathleen Conradi. She's been hired as the city's director of rodent mitigation. She'll coordinate city agencies such as the Departments of Health and Mental Hygiene, Parks and Rec, and Sanitation, and find, quote, innovative ways to cut off rats' food sources and use new technologies to detect and exterminate rat populations. That was in the release that came down yesterday. It's going to cover most of the northern half of Manhattan, where $3.5 million will be spent to improve and increase inspections, use equipment such as rat bait and traps, and harden the floors at some public housing to prevent rat burrowing. The mayor, Eric Adams, said, the rats are going to hate Kathy, but we're excited to have her leading this important effort. So there it is. Rats, be warned. Kathy's coming after you. All right. Second hour of Light the Towers coming up. Gene Watson, Assistant General Manager of the Kansas City Royals, joins us next. We'll continue with Light the Tower on the Horn, 104.9, 101.9, AM 1260. We're live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com.
Most weekends I'm working, but when I'm not working, I like watching sports, my movies, my TV, whatever it is, on my 75-inch LG TV, courtesy of Audio Visual Consultations. And if you want that setup like I've got, it's the setup I've always wanted, you can get it too. Just make that phone call right now, 512-255-8678. That's 255. Came over to my house to get my house setup done, but now it looks perfect. It's exactly what I've always needed, what I've always wanted. So if you want the same setup like I've got, they can obviously get that done. They've got the latest smart TVs and Sonos audio in stock. If you need something a little bit smaller, they can do that too. Or if you want to get that full tilt home theater experience in your house, get you a 150-inch screen. Yeah, they can do that too. Whatever your needs are, big or small, in the entertainment realm, just let Tom McKay and the folks at Audio Visual Consultations take care of it. Again, 512-255-8678. That's 255-8678. Do not delay. Call right now and let Tom McKay and the folks at AV Consultations help you realize the home entertainment setup of your dreams.
Second hour of Light the Tower on the Horn. Craig Way with you. Jeff Howe out today. He'll be back tomorrow, and I'll be on with him. I'll be doing my portion of the program remotely, as we say, from what I like to refer to as the Williamson County Bureau up there, because it'll give me the jump start in getting up to Waco to get ready to call a Texas and Baylor game, one of the 3-game weekend series from the Baylor Ballpark tomorrow night. Clean up from hour number 1 before we get to our special guest. The story that we were talking about, the bathrooms and things like that. Cam, it sounds like you've raised attention again yesterday when you said Horn FM, and it kind of sounded like you said pornfm.com. Somebody just said sound like you just said the porn studio bathroom about the media right.
Does it sound like I'm saying horn or porn? I thought I said horn.
I thought you did that time.
Okay.
Yesterday, it sounded for sure like you said it the other deal. I mentioned Calais, Maine is where that media right. Somebody said Calais is the proper French pronunciation for Calais. Man, locals pronounce it Calais. I understand that. Yeah, that the way some. I mean, and listen, you take an outsider and take them over on 290 and ask them to pronounce the name of the town there. I guarantee you, 99 out of 100 are going to say Manor. They're not going to say Manor, because that's just that's the local. That's the local way of doing things.
I know I did when I first moved here.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense to look at it like that. I mentioned about the New York City hiring the Rat Czar, and Phil said, and she had from Italian descent, CW, and an Italian is a rat czar. How fitting is that? And then Joe says, I think I saw Rat Czar at Emo's. They open up for Sargassum. Okay. There you go. All right. So there's the cleanup from hour number 1. Okay. Speaking of New York, our next guest doesn't live in New York. In fact, he used to live right near where the Williamson County Bureau will be tomorrow. He used to be there. He now headquarters out of the greater Houston area. But, of course, he is the assistant general manager of the Kansas City Royals from Major League Scouting. That's Gene Watson, who was in New York. Now he jet-set it across to San Diego late last night, but I cannot let you get away from New York without having you tell your story of what you woke up to in New York City. New York City is a city of you shouldn't be surprised by about anything, but what you told me and what you posted on social media is rather almost disbelieving that you got through that. Good morning, Gino. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Way. How are you?
Good. So tell us about, you were up in New York and you were scouting up there, and did I see you also, MLB Network had you drop by, and so you went by there because everybody in baseball knows Gene Watson. And then what, you had one more night to spend there before heading out, is that right?
Yeah, and you know how it is once you get going on the road. The hotels all kind of run together. The hotel rooms kind of all run together. You think you're in one city, you're in the next when you wake up. And I woke up yesterday morning for a day game, and at about 4 a.m. the fire alarm went off, which, as you know, fire alarms go off all the time in hotels. And it, I didn't think much of it. 4 a.m. fire alarm goes off,
especially in New York.
Exactly. And I've been in 4 hotel fires. This will be number 5. And so it goes off again, and you're thinking, well, I'm on the 12th floor. If this thing goes down, there ain't much I can do, and fall back to sleep. And so I wake up, I go downstairs to get coffee, and there are fire trucks and ambulances everywhere. And literally the entire block, other than our hotel, was on fire. And it was surreal. It was like waking up to like what you would imagine a building getting hit by a bomb to look like. It was really kind of surreal.
The pictures were pretty chilling to see, but what you're telling me is that you went back to sleep after the fire alarm woke you up. You went back to sleep. You just kind of tuned them out. As I told you late last night, I said you must have really been tired. So
yeah.
So you go back to sleep. Then you get up. And first of all, the elevators are working, I guess. You get down, and then the whole area looks gutted.
Right, and you've seen it where you have one, like, really nice structure, and then everything attached to it's kind of, like, really old and outdated. And
yeah.
Thank God. And I can't believe you said that, because that's the first thing I thought this morning is, like, how did the elevators even work? Because literally at the edge of the hotel. And what's funny is a buddy of mine with the Nationals had dropped me off after the game, not to have to take the subway, and I literally went in the far right restaurant. If you look at the picture, that it's gone. I literally walked in there after the game to see if they had the kitchen open, and it's kind of surreal. And it's really like a day game, airplane, fly New York to San Diego. So this morning's like the really first morning to be able to reflect about really how lucky I was.
Wow. Just amazing to think about. It is life on the road, I suppose, that kind of thing.
You know it better than anybody, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'm going to put you on the spot right out of the way. We just got a text on the Specs text line at 337-3776 who says, I'm from Cal Allen, which we know is down in the Corpus area. My best friend's son plays in the Royals minor league system. His name is Emshoff or Emshoff?
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a catcher.
Catcher out of Arkansas State. Yeah, we are really – what a great young man, too. I got to spend a lot of time with him this spring. When they're throwing their sides on the back bullpens, on the back quads, the catchers are kind of just hanging out until they have to throw. And me and him sat on a golf cart this spring and talked. And he was a guy in the 2020 draft, that 5-round draft that really, like, after the 5 rounds, it kind of became like a recruiting session, and we really won the tie. Matt Price, our area guy, did a tremendous job of winning the tie on this player and having a relationship with him, and he has a very bright future, really good-looking catcher out of Arkansas State.
Wow.
Wonderful kid.
Okay, do you have him, is he like in low A ball, high A ball? Do you remember where he is right now?
I had broke before they set the minor league roster, so I would have to look. I had already left with the club to Arlington, so I would have to look. But tremendous talent. I mean, if there would have been a regular 20, 30-round draft that year, he would have gone very well in the draft, but he's somebody we signed after the draft and we're really excited about.
By the way, how has that now we're 3 years beyond the actual pandemic itself of 2020, and then, of course, we know there's been residual effect since then where it's affected college baseball, as you're so well connected with, minor league baseball as well. There was the contraction of 42 teams, I guess, that sort of thing. Now that a lot of that smoke is cleared and now it's 3 years after, what's been the overall impression you've had of what the pandemic did ultimately, and the new agreement, and with the big clubs taking over a lot of the minor league clubs and the way that it went, that how it is all shaken down now in how it affects players, the draft, and player development?
Well, Craig, I've been pretty vocal about this. I'm not in favor of ever cutting opportunities away from players. I think that even when it was 100-round draft, if you wanted to be, you could go as long as you wanted. Look at Mike Piazza, 50-something round. I forget, 58th round or something like that, crazy. Like, whenever you're taking away those opportunities from players, you're really affecting the game at the grassroots level, because just look around the Austin area of the number of kids that, they weren't high picks. They were later round guys that went off and played 2, 3, 4, 5 years of minor league baseball. And then they go back to their cities and they become coaches, and they open up facilities. And so they're growing the game. They're giving back to the game that gave them so much. And so I think you lose a lot of that. The 20th round, I mean, John Smoltz was past the 20th round. Roy Oswalt past the 20th round. Jared Walsh, first baseman for the Angels, past the 20th round in the draft. And you can say, well, we'll sign those players after the draft anyway, 7 to 10, sometimes 12 players after the draft. But that kid that might, be at a high academic school that's got a 6-figure job waiting for them, they're not going to go kick it around in independent league baseball, where they might, go play a couple of years of minor league baseball and develop and turn into something like Mike Piazza did, like Roy Oswalt, like John Smoltz. And so you're really taking that player out of the process. But for the grinder player, the kid that really loves to play baseball, that's going to go the independent league route, it's made the independent leagues very valuable. We've actually hired a director of independent league scouting, and it's something that we're going to spend a lot of attention on moving forward. But for me, anytime you're ever taking away the game at the grassroots level and taking away opportunities from players, I don't see where that can be a good thing for the game.
Gene Watson, assistant GM of the Kansas City Royals, joining us here on Light the Tower. By the way, just to fill in the blanks, Cale Emshoff is a guy, and out of Arkansas Little Rock, UALR,
Yes.
and playing right now for the Quad City River Bandits. So he's in high A ball right now for you.
Yes, and a highly intelligent leader behind the plate, very strong player too. He's built like a linebacker. He's a good looking kid.
All right, let's jump to the bigs. I've been wanting to talk to you about this. Now, last week we did talk about pace of play and how this accelerated pace of play had become the talk of everything, and we're seeing games played in 240 and 238 and things like that. We're seeing and it's become very popular to see that happen. Now, as I've heard you say before and others as well, there's always going to be, I guess you might say, side effects of some of this. And one of the side effects, obviously, is this action clock, or pitch clock as folks know it. And I've already seen it involved in the collegiate game where, David Pierce was ejected from a game on Sunday against Kansas State, not for arguing balls and strikes. He was upset with a home plate umpire who was trying to hurry his player into the batter's box when he still had a player being checked out by a trainer who was on the field at first base. So you still had that. But as David told me, he said, it's difficult because the player is supposed to be in a ready-to-swing position, in not just foot in the box, but in the box, ready to swing the bat at 10 seconds on that action clock, whereas the pitcher has until, down to round 2 to release it. And he said that he had talked to one of the national umpiring supervisors and said, boy, if we could get 2 more seconds off of that ready-to-swing thing down to 8, that would help. As we know, the bigs have been going with 7. Then you have the celebrated thing with what happened with Manny Machado. I've seen some other things. I saw it in the Dodger-Giant game last night with Taylor Rogers was assessed a ball 4, and it loaded up the bases for the Dodgers, and they wound up having a big inning out of it as well. How about your thoughts on how clubs are trying and individuals are trying to adjust to being on the clock?
Well, it's a mental rhythm, and I just watched it in New York with Juan Soto, who I brought back to San Diego, the Padres, 3 games in New York against the Mets. Juan Soto's really struggling with it because once he sets foot, Juan's always been pretty methodical about the way he approaches his at-bats, but once he sets that back left foot in the box, he's trying to create some type of rhythm of like mentally looking down and then being set at the 9-second mark and being ready to go in the box and just creating just a rhythm to it. And for guys that are very pitch to pitch, methodically pitch to pitch on thinking about what this guy might do to him, thinking about a scouting report in their head as to, pitch sequencing by counts, for those guys that are pretty methodical with their processes, both on the mound and at the plate, it's been a very difficult thing to manage. And a lot of the guys are just – I saw Max Scherzer literally break 3 rules on the mound, but because he looked so confused when he did it, nobody did anything. And in any other game, it would have been a ball. And it's kind of created a little bit of chaos for the guys that have always worked slow. I do think it's been very, very good for a lot of guys that work slow for no reason, and it's kind of gotten them out of their own way at the plate and on the mound as far as taking the ball, getting on the mound, seeing the pitch, and going. And so there've been a lot of players that have really performed a lot better because of the pitch clock. It's made them get out of their own way a little bit. So, but you're going to continue to see this for the coming weeks of guys just trying to find that personal rhythm to the way they go about things on the mound and at the plate. Yeah.
I started to say, somebody had asked on the Specs text line, if you could make an adjustment or a change to this action clock, this pitch clock, whatever. By the way, I'm not real fond of the term action clock. It reminds me of the old defunct World Football League in the 70s. You didn't kick the extra point. You ran or passed for the action point, that kind of thing. Right. So, I mean, they should just call it the pitch clock because the pitch is involved. It's not the pitcher's clock. It's the pitch clock, so that affects both the pitcher and the hitter. But I digress. If somebody asks if you could make an adjustment or a change to how it is set up right now, A, do you think there needs to be an adjustment? And B, if so, what would you do?
I don't think there needs to be one. And I was probably one of the more critical people of a clock. The game. This is the one game where there's no, and now there is. I think it's been wonderful. The time that it's cut off, it's not just the pitch clock for me. It's the pitch clock and the fact that the shifts are gone has just created a much better product. I've been in the ballparks now for 2 weeks. It has created a lot of chaos from a bullpen management standpoint and guys being ready in the bullpen because there was a half inning in Milwaukee last week that was a 53-second inning. 53 seconds. And if you've got a guy coming in from the bullpen, there's no time for that guy to get ready. I've talked to a number of pitching coaches around the league where teams with veteran staffs are going to use their 5 visits. If you look around the league, teams with experienced pitching, they're using their 5 visits. You're seeing situations where infielders are coming in just to slow the pace down. But what you're also going to see in the coming months is, well, first of all, we have 111 pitchers on the IL right now, which is remarkable for the month of April. But you're about to see in the coming months, the training for pitchers has never been aerobic, and now it's going to have to be more aerobic. You're reloading, and as that continues to go over 5, 10, 15, 20 starts, watch the velocities begin to drop from starting pitchers, and we've already seen it in Chicago with Lance Lynn. But the other thing is watch the velocity drop with relievers as they start to use, 2 out of 3 days and 4 out of 6 and 5 out of 8. You're going to start to see some velocities drop because it's such that pitch clock is going to change the training of pitchers, and it's certainly once it heats up going to affect the durability of the pitchers.
I don't know if one thing is related to the other. But we've seen some weird things happen, both in Major League Baseball and college baseball. Think about the other day, Rylan Galvan catching for Texas against Texas State, and he was trying to throw down the second to get a runner, and he hit the pitcher in the back. Keith Moreland said, when I was catching, I did that. It's pretty embarrassing, but it happens. He says, but it's rare. Then I saw what happened in that weird deal with the Guardians game against the Yankees in Cleveland with Battenfield, set to start his first major league game, and then he ran into trouble in the 5th inning on a hit to Miles Straw in center. Straw's throwing to the cutoff man, Andres Jimenez. He turns to throw the ball home, and he hits the second base umpire, Larry Vanover, in the side of the head. I know you know Larry. I hope he's all right. But, we've seen some weird stuff this season, Gino.
Yeah, the pace is just so much quicker. The anxiety and the anxiousness of the game is just high right now because there's so many changes. And you can look at the umpiring crews across the league, and they're like, really on trying to stay on top of everything and make sure, because there's so much to stay on top of right now. But even with the players, with the shifts being gone, guys are having to be in positions that they haven't normally been in, and umpires as well, which is probably the reason for the collision. But the other thing is like the larger bases and the number of stolen base attempts that have been successful so far. I think we're seeing just a combination of things that have made the product more exciting, and they've done a tremendous job of encompassing all of these things together. What's going to be interesting as we get to the 40 and 50 game mark is how teams begin to adjust to it. It's a high anxiety, high anxious, high action league right now, and I think you're going to see situations where pitchers start to just throw over twice to create the action of the stolen base. And then you're going to see more timed pick plays. You're going to see catchers. You're going to see more pitch outs. We've already seen more bunts than you've ever seen. I couldn't count the number of bunts that took place in the last series in New York between the Mets and Padres. And so I just think this thing is swinging back to a little bit of older style, older school baseball, while moving forward with the way we're doing things. And it's so far, I think it's been a tremendous product, and I think the fans are really encouraged by it.
Okay, all right. I have a feeling, and you will know certainly more about this. than me. But I have a feeling that this next question that came in was definitely directed to be tongue-in-cheek. But in the aftermath of yesterday's 10-1 Royals win over the Rangers, somebody wanting to know if the club is going to move Nate Eaton to pitcher after he had that good inning in Arlington.
What a tremendous athlete. And when I had left, I mean, Nate was a 24-year-old player in A-ball. I mean, 80% of the players at the major league level are producing at their highest value by the age of 25. And Nate was a 24-year-old guy in A-ball with high strikeouts, but he went to the fall league, and I was with the Angels, and I called my former boss, Dayton Moore, who's now with the Rangers, and I said, hey, I dare you guys to leave this guy on the Rule 5 list. Because just such a gifted athlete, tremendous athlete, move around the diamond, play everywhere. He can run, he can throw, and now we find out he can throw 95 off the mound. And when you're going 13-13, which is what the restrictions are with the roster restrictions, and you have that in a mop-up game in your bag, a guy that throws 95 and is an athlete like him, you know, he can be a weapon for us. So wonderful kid that's kind of been a late bloom guy that is a tremendous athlete.
Yeah, that's good to know. Okay, one more thing before we let you go. This is something I haven't even told you about, and so I'm just dropping it in on the blue. But for folks who don't know, Gene Watson has probably seen at least one minor league game. Would it be safe to say that you have seen at least one minor league game in all 120 major league affiliated ballparks, as well as all the independent leagues? Have you seen at least one game in all of the parks?
Not all the independent leagues. I would tell you in the minor leagues, probably 95%.
Okay. Against that backdrop, what I'm going to do is every week we're going to do this here. I'm going to give you some names, and I want you to tell me if you've seen this team in its current incarnation, with the current name they have, if you've seen them play a game, okay? I'll start with the ones that you're really closely dialed in on, the International League, AAA. Have you seen a game involving the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp?
100%. I lived in St. Augustine, Florida for a year when I was in the third grade, and my dad used to take me up to see the Jacksonville Stars at the time.
Right.
And they would play an exhibition game against the Atlanta Brave Major League Club every year, and so that would be a definite yes.
All right, but here's the trick. What I'm asking, have you seen a game where a team called the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp played? Have you seen them in their current incarnation as the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, which are now AAA for, as like you pointed out, for years they were the Braves AA, but and then they were the Dodgers AA for a while. But are they? Have you seen them in their current incarnation as the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp?
I have not, mostly because I have a firm no Florida rule in my travel rules.
All right. Pacific Coast League. I think you've seen all of these teams. Have you seen a game with the Tacoma Rainiers in Tacoma?
Many, many times.
Okay. All right.
Many times. Eastern
League. Have you seen a game with the Richmond Flying Squirrels?
1,000 times.
Okay. Are they? They're still the Giants AA?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
All right. Southern League. Have you seen the Rocket City Trash Pandas?
I have not as the Trash Pandas, and they were our AA affiliate in 22 or 21 when I was with the Angels, and I did not get in there. But
yeah.
I have not.
They were the Huntsville Stars, I guess, for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
Up there.
I did see them as the Huntsville Stars back in the early 90s when Canseco and the boys were there.
Okay. In the Texas League, have you seen the Amarillo Sod Poodles?
I have, yes.
Okay. In the Northwest League, have you seen the Hillsboro Hops? Not Hillsboro, Texas. That would be Hillsboro, Oregon.
Beautiful ballpark. I saw my son pitch there. Yes, wonderful place, great fans, beautiful ballpark on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon.
Okay. In the South Atlantic League, have you seen the Bowling Green Hot Rods?
Last year, I had to fly from Memphis to Houston at 6 a.m. to take a plane from Houston to Nashville because there were no cars because the Elvis movie was being released in Memphis and the CMA Awards were going on in Nashville. And I had to Uber the whole trip to go up and watch a guy strike out 4 times and make 2 or 3 errors in left field in Bowling Green? The answer is yes.
Okay. California League. Have you seen the Modesto Nuts play as the Modesto Nuts?
I have many times. And the backstory, that's where they filmed some of the movie Moneyball.
Okay. Carolina League. Have you seen the Down East Wood Ducks play?
I have seen the Down East Wood Ducks play. Yep.
And I'm sure you've.
Ballpark.
I started to say I'm sure you've been to Kinston many times in the past when they were the Kinston Indians there, down there as
many
well.
Times.
Okay.
Yep.
And finally, the Florida State League. Have you seen? And I know you've got a Florida rule, but but you might have had to do it by. Have you seen the Fort Myers Mighty Mussels?
Yes, I have. And most of my dislike for the state of Florida is that I covered the Florida State League for 12 years. And yes, Lee County Sports Complex, I've seen many games there. I've seen that team play, and that's the low A affiliate of the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we're going to do this every week. I'm going to toss a few at you and just say, hey, have you seen this team as they are currently named playing a game? Because it just gives folks an idea of how well traveled you are.
Restaurant in any one of those cities, I can give you that too.
I dare say, I'll bet you can. Hey, Gino, I appreciate the time. Have a nice weekend in San Diego. Hit Richard Walker's Pancake House or something.
Absolutely. All right, Craig. Thanks so much.
All right, Gino. That's Gene Watson, the assistant general manager of the Kansas City Royals. Coming up, we do have our Longhorn Notebook. We'll get to that before we get done here and Light the Tower on the Horn, 104.9, 101.9 AM 1260. We're live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Beautiful weather right now. We could get some rain before the weekend is out, and as we go further into the spring, we may be dealing with really stormy weather, the type of storms that could damage your roof. If you have already been through this or worried about perhaps having some roof damage, you can trust our friend John Hardy to give you an honest assessment. If you do have some damage, it's possible you can get a new roof with those Timberline solar shingles. Now, maybe you checked into solar in the past and you said it's just too expensive. I can't do that. Truth of the matter is, the price of solar has come down significantly. Not only that in recent years, but all solar products are now eligible for a 30% tax credit. No money down and as little as $100 per month. With solar shingles, you own your own power. You pay yourself each month, not the power company. It's just a 15-minute phone call with Divided Sky that can get you all the information you need on a new roof with solar shingles. Give them a call today, 512-995-ROOF. It's TEC license number 37397. Check them out on the web at DividedSkyAustin.com. This is Light the Tower on the Horn. Thanks again to Gene Watson, Assistant General Manager of the Kansas City Royals, for joining us. Somebody asked, hey, follow-up question, what you were talking about with Gene. Have you ever been in a hotel in a fire situation? Yes, I have. Awakened in the middle of the night in, of all places, Norman, Oklahoma. That happened. And there was another place, too, where I was and had to get out. I also, in my very, very, this is how very early my days were in working in professional radio. I was 23, 24. I was still in college, I think. And I was working at KRLD, not in sports at the time. I was a part-time news tape editor. And what I would do is I would write the leads for the anchors around the recorded pieces that would come in the old 8-track type carts that we would run back in the day. And I would write the leads for the anchors. Well, on one specific morning, all the reporters were out at other events, and there had been a fire at the mansion on Turtle Creek, the really nice, opulent, bougie 5-star hotel. And they needed somebody just to go over and get a couple of sound bites from, police and fire spokesman or something. So they said, hey, can you grab your tape recorder and go out there? And I had covered very, very little things. And I said, sure. So I hop in the car and I race down there and I get there and I'm looking for a spokesman, a police or fire spokesman. And the fire had just been put out, but you could see where it was all smoldered up on the upper floors. And I couldn't find anybody. It was interesting. You had people there. This is how upscale this hotel was. You had people in their bathrobes and pajamas sitting out on the front lawn having croissants and coffee while their rooms were being, cleared of fire danger. But they were serving them breakfast on the lawn. So I went looking, and I'm just trying to find somebody, a fire chief, a spokesman, somebody. So I end up walking in the hotel. I just walked past security people. They didn't say anything. I take an elevator up to like the 8th floor. I get off, and you can just smell it. It's still smoldering and all that sort of stuff. I get up there, and then one of the guys in one of the uniforms go, what are you doing up here? And I said, I'm looking for the spokesman. He said, come with me. So I go down there. I mean, just kind of wandered into it, and the fire chief came over, and he goes, you're not supposed to be up there. I said, I don't know. I just need to. He goes, what do you need? I said, I need a status thing for the station. Go ahead. Boom. And I did an interview with him and took it back. So
how about that, Craig?
Sometimes you just stumble into things.
Putting your life in danger.
Nah, it was already out. It smelled, you could tell. And I did stay with the Longhorn baseball team in Manhattan, Kansas, what was then a Ramada Inn. Later it became a Holiday Inn. I think it's a Holiday Inn now. And they had just recently renovated it because of a fire. This was the hotel where I stayed with the men's basketball team where there were maggots in the oatmeal. And Rick Barnes called the banquet manager over and showed it to him and said, what would you do if you were me? The banquet manager's like, oh, man, I'm so sorry. He goes, no, never mind it. I'm just curious. What would you do if you were me? He goes, that's really bad. I'd probably be really hot. And Rick was like, okay, I'm just making sure. So, yeah, and they just had a fire in there. And it was nasty off all that. Let's hit our Longhorn Notebook here real quick.
Longhorn Notebook.
Longhorn Notebook here. Again, a reminder about the spring game that includes Bevo Boulevard, Longhorn City Limits, football autographs from 9 to 9:30. You got men's and women's tennis going on. Softball, and Texas softball comes off last night's 4-0 shutout of Texas State down in San Marcos. Mac Morgan has pitched back-to-back complete game shutouts now for Texas. They're 34-8-1. They go back in the Big 12 conference play tomorrow night with Kansas in town for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday games. Soccer going on with a spring exhibition match against Houston. You got all of that going on with that. Obviously, folks are asking the questions we talked about at the top of the program with A.J. Johnson decommitting from Texas. He had signed with Texas, but he is signing with the who was it? It was in the NBL in the Australian League. And somebody said, how do we get outbid by an Australian team? Sometimes it goes long beyond just the bidding thing or money if you're talking about for NIL versus a professional contract, which is probably going to offer more. Sometimes the young man isn't really interested in furthering the education of the collegiate level. He wants to get on with his life and play professionally. There's lots of different factors that roll into that.
Illawarra Hawks.
It's the Illawarra.
Hawks.
The Illawarra Hawks there in the NBL in Australia. It's a good professional league there. Lifetime Longhorn Joey Wright, I think, is still the coach of the Adelaide 36ers there in the NBL. All right, we'll be back to wrap up today's edition of Light the Tower on the Horn. Heading on into the springtime, and certainly you want to be feeling your best right now. Maybe you're not. Maybe you should go get it checked out. One thing that you know for sure is that our friends at Total Men's Primary Care can help you, whether you're just trying to get an annual physical, maybe it's a weight loss issue. They work with the biology of your body through a combination of coaching, diet, and medication to help you achieve the weight loss or the achievable goal that you aspire to reach. And maybe you're one of the 1 out of every 3 men at or above the age of 40 who might be dealing with low testosterone. Those low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy and raise cholesterol, cause weight gain, and you can do more than just the performance-related things. Well, Total Men's Primary Care specializes in treating men with low T. And right now they're offering a $19 testosterone evaluation at all locations. Don't take my word for it. Schedule an appointment online. You can be seen that same day at any other 20-plus Austin area clinics. You go to TotalMens.com, click on the yellow button where it says book an appointment, and make that appointment. Find the location that's right for you. Total Men's Primary Care, the doctor's office just for men. Okay, a couple of things here real quick. First of all, Cam told me during the break, Dan Snyder has agreed to sell. The Washington Commanders has a buyer. It's that group out of Philadelphia led by the Sixers owner, Magic Johnson, involved in that as well. So details on that coming up from Chad and Zay. Also, UIL Girls State Soccer Tournament, Grapevine rallied back to beat Smithson Valley 2-1. Georgetown about to kick off in 3 minutes from now against Frisco at Birkelbach. Then finally, a texter said, I had a minor league baseball hat as a teenager. I don't remember the city, but it was a Mudcat. Yeah, that's the Carolina Mudcats of the Carolina League. They play at 5 County Stadium just east of Raleigh. I have a Mudcat hat of my own. All right, Jeff will be back with us tomorrow. I'll be on as well from the Williamson County Bureau for our producer, Cam Parker. I'm Craig Way. Thanks for joining us. We'll visit with you tomorrow on Light the Tower.